Okay, so just to repeat it on the recording in case anybody actually watches it, next week we will hold class Tuesday and Thursday morning, and then second section, if you guys feel free, you can come to that Thursday night. I'll be holding that session only. I'm going to let those guys know the same schedule tonight, so some people may or may not choose to come here. We've got some open seats, so Tuesday and Thursday we might be packed in here, but we'll see. It's not required to come if you don't want to, but I would highly recommend it. So that's next week. Just so, where do I have this thing up? This is the design review week, if nobody's seen that yet. Hopefully everybody got an email in the last day or so about that. Just going to open up a new document here in InDesign, and I don't think I mentioned a couple of things in this section as I did in the later night section. But if you have a body of text, and let's just fill it with some placeholder text for now, and add some more. See how, like, we have a specific space laid out right on the page for text, and not all of our text fits in that box. Instead of kind of creating a new text box, we can link text boxes together with this little plus button here. And so what that does is it allows us to add a second text box. I didn't do that as well as I wanted to. Click and drag. And now that's the overflow from this text box. So you can link text boxes together. Talked about a lot of this stuff. I don't know if I mentioned, but you can, if you're doing a vector drawing in Illustrator, you can select all of that and Control C and then jump into InDesign and press Control V and literally copy and paste. I did talk about that.
Right at the end.
Right at the
I
end?
don't know if you showed it.
No, I didn't show it. I feel like that's not necessary to show, but I just wanted to mention it. And then those placeholders, well, the frame manipulation, so with the pen tool, I think we talked about this in the direct select tool. We can select points and manipulate that, or add points with our pen tool, add more points. And so if you want to start wrapping text, manually, you can do that. So like wrapping around an image or something like that, you can do it manually, and then you can also do it through this window here. I feel like we talked about all this, but I just wanted to reiterate it because I don't fully remember. And we talked about placing images, right? And how you manipulate those. Difference between, let's just place an image really quickly. Click once and I place the full size image. If I Control Z that, I can replace it, clicking and dragging, replacing the actual size. If I had a placeholder, I could place it directly into the placeholder. When you hover over, I need to have my regular select tool on, you'll get this little circle. That's the actual image, and so the box that it sits in is actually kind of acting as a clipping mask. So If you want to zoom in but keep the same size box for the actual image, you can do that way. And then if you want to scale this thing, Control Shift allows you to scale that, but if you don't hold Control, it's just basically maneuvering that clipping mask thing. And you can add a stroke to that if you want. And I think we talked about this stuff as well, but let's just go over it really quickly. But you can change where that stroke lies within the outline of that picture frame. Did we talk about display performance? No. Okay. So I found something that we didn't talk about. So as you place and link more images into your file and create more pages, the file gets fairly large. And so InDesign has a display performance option, and the user view settings are typically set to typical display, which it basically kind of makes the image fuzzy. But if you are utilizing, so when you place it and it's fuzzy, it may not be that it's actually pixelized, it just might be the graphic display option. And so if we chose fast display, it would kind of disappear. If we typical display, it shows up. And then high quality actually makes the image sharp. But as you turn your images to high quality, the slower the program will work. So just kind of know that the display quality, if you need to use a high display quality on a particular image to draw a couple of reference things to that image, do that, but then go back and put it back to the typical display so that it doesn't bog down the system.
You have to select the image and right click on it, because otherwise it slides into the whole file, I think.
Yeah, right. You have to right click, or you have to select whatever image you're doing and right click and display performances.
You'll get the menu.
Under preferences, also units and increments, if you have your ruler images increments set to like points or picasa, you may want to change those to images or inches, sorry. So that's a good thing to know as well. Someone asked me about that in the second section on Tuesday. So yeah, yes, Ryan.
How about spell check?
We don't need no stinking spell check.
Just because you have the play.
Just because I have clay. Not fair.
No, it's not.
That's a good question because mine's on this function where it highlights my misspelled words. Where is it under? So I can get to it quickly.
Control I don't know. I've never used it.
You've never needed to use it.
I thought it was under edit.
It could be.
It's probably under edit. Spelling, right below it.
Yeah, spelling. Check spelling, dynamic spelling. I like dynamic spelling on because it'll underline words that are spelled wrong, similar in Word. And then when you right click on it, typically it'll give you a list of words that that it thinks it might be. Since we don't have any actual words on here, it's not. Yeah.
Make sure you have a dictionary because InDesign has a very small dictionary. There's a lot of compound words it won't recognize, especially architectural compound words.
Yeah, look, like most people don't have a problem with spelling except for like you and me.
Okay.
But Google, I use Google all the time. Forget a dictionary. Google.
Probably doesn't help too much when you're way off.
No, it recognizes it.
Throughout.
Listen here, boys. Quit making fun of me, all right? You shouldn't talk. You have no room to talk. All right. Sorry about that tangent. So that pretty much sums up InDesign. Yay! Next thing.
No questions? No, everybody got it?
Yeah. Does anybody have any questions about InDesign that they've found that they can't do or something like that as they've done their project for tonight? Yeah. Thank you. That's actually on my list. I just was ignoring it.
No, it's the same as every.
So, save a copy, file, save a copy. You can not save it as a PDF.
No, you have to export. There's also Adobe PDF.
Oh, it is import export with files. I prefer printing as a PDF.
Oh,
Personally, I think it prints a smaller file. However, export Adobe PDF print, and
I think Interactive saves it like an Illustrator layered file.
yeah, but we want smallest file
Yeah.
size. So I think Adobe PDF print is probably the one you want to go with if you're going to export it as a PDF. Again, if you have a PDF printer on your computer, I would use that because the file size definitely varies between the two. Oh, also, if you don't like it's somewhat difficult to actually type your text in InDesign. Sometimes it's easier to just type it in like a Word doc and then copy and paste it into your text file. So that's also something that I do a lot. Is that I'll write in Word and then literally copy it and then move into InDesign and paste it into the text slots that I want. Any other questions before we move on? Sweet.
Cool.
So the final assignment is up on Blackboard. I put it up this morning, so you guys should be able to view that. It's due December 18th at 11 p.m. No late work accepted, period. So get it in before that. All right. It's 300 points, so 150 of those points is the Rhino model, and then another 150 points for the rendering, Photoshop, and board layout. So the first part of the assignment is to create this lamp, and I would recommend that you can have some artistic license with the light bulb itself. You can make it look more like a tongue than just kind of this blob that's like melting out of the frame. I'll show you what I mean in a second. But basically it's all elements, so if you go to this website here, you can get more images of the lamp itself. But it's basically the bulb, the casing, it's a revolve tool, and then there's a bracket that holds it to the tripod legs, and then there's some finer detail like a cord and some chains here that connect between the the tripod legs themselves. On this link to under handouts, these past 243 instructor tips. I don't want to actually play any of this stuff. Final project lamp techniques. That one is good to look at. I believe that goes over the links and how to create those. So we won't get to them today at all. But there is a link to how to do those. So, you know, modeling those are not necessary, but if you want to get some extra credit points, I would go as far as you can modeling the lamp and also modeling a scene. You know, you model the lamp, put a floor down, put some walls around it, maybe add the stair detail or something, and the casework, you know, as much of it as you can muster, pretty much. But they're all everything that's in this image. We've gone over the tools in order to create this stuff, so it's just a matter of like thinking about how you do it, whether you'd extrude it or revolve it or sweep it, things like that. So there's a couple of hints here. The cage editing tool, I tried to mess with it last night. I wasn't a big fan of it. I would do a solid ellipsoid, and I'll show you kind of how to walk through that today a little bit. We won't get too far on it, but we'll get through hopefully the actual tongue portion of the bulb and the revolve casing for it. Rendering, so after you get it done, you'll want to apply some materials to everything and render, you know, 2 views of it. Do some quick photoshopping, and then either utilize InDesign or Illustrator, creating an ArcC paper-sized board. Put a title with a concept statement, 2 or 3 sentences, nothing extravagant. Be like, I had to model this and it really sucked. Just joking. Don't do that. But try to utilize two different types of texts and sizes. Material choice palette. So maybe you use, you know, a flooring and whatever material you choose for the lamp itself. Maybe just get a cutout square of that and label it what that material is. And then also put the renderings on the board. And so you'll be submitting your Rhino model, last name, first name, final.3dm, and the final board. So with all that stuff on it. Again, last name, first name, final.pdf. So you'll save that as a PDF. So, in the past, there's been like, oh, render this in 3ds Max. Just render it in Rhino. Don't even worry about 3ds Max. So if you find anything that says 3ds Max, just kind of ignore it. I think I took it all out, but who knows, I might have missed something. So, again, that's due December 18th by 11 p.m. Okay. So this is the model that Joe rendered so nicely. And so this is kind of what you'll be expected to model. And so it's really not as tricky as it looks, as it first appears. We start to hide some of these layers here and start to look at the line work that's being utilized. It's just a matter of kind of guesstimating how big this back portion is and proportionally, you know, size your bulb to the rest of the object. This is my rendition of it here that I did last night. And so I have another model where I completed the legs, but basically I just started out in the top view, and I went up to solid ellipsoid and created a form from the center. And so holding the shift key down, you can create an ellipsoid here. Right, so the first thing I'd recommend is to start with the bulb and get that kind of the size that you want it. And then the key is to rebuild this thing. So we talked about the rebuild tool a bit, and what that does is it changes, we can change the degree of it from a 2-degree curve to a 3-degree curve to get nice smooth edges. And then we can also increase the point count. So originally there's only 8 and 5, and I'm increasing it to 10. And click OK. And then I can turn on my control points. And from here you can start to select, and with the U, I forget what this thing's called. You can start to manipulate this thing in different ways. So let's start looking at that in 3 dimensions there. So we can, you know, overall transform, scale, 3D, 1D, and 2D. So that's 1D, that's not really what I wanted to do. So it takes some kind of intuitive thinking about how we're actually modeling this thing, but scale it 2D and maybe shrink this thing down. Maybe it gets elongated a little bit. This is where kind of however you think it's starting to look like a tongue, you know, it's kind of, you can play with this as much as you want or as little as you want, I suppose. But start to shrink in the sides a little bit. Kind of just dragging over points and shifting this thing till I get it looking the way that I want it to look. You two are terrible up here. Too early in the morning for you.
Yeah.
So that's using the ellipsoid tool. You can also create a mesh ellipsoid. And using, where is it here? The edit cage tool, we can first create, okay, this, I always screw up on this thing. So, where are we here? Transform, cage edit. We have to first create a cage. I feel like I'm not even around the object here. And then, and I didn't get the object. So, cage, create cage, edit. Let's try the left view. That looks pretty good. And cage, edit. Come on.
Command was still open.
Select object. Enter. Select control object. Oh, I got this thing to work last night and now it's not working. Let's turn off control points. Okay.
That end though, I don't know what you're snapping to.
Huh? There we go. I forgot to actually, let's just move this thing. Transform, move, and my planer turned on, shift, and now we can go ahead and say cage edit and select captive objects, which should be that. Select control objects, which is that. And now that creates a series of control points around that egg shape, and you can start to manipulate that mesh. I personally think this is a more difficult way to do it, so I would recommend doing it this way, but if you want to explore the cage edit tool, you are more than welcome to. So I believe if you start selecting kind of one or parts of the cage, right, you can start to expand this thing out in different ways, but it's more difficult to control, I think, than just utilizing a solid ellipse and changing its degree to 3 and then manipulating that to how you want it, and you can eventually get it to look like the original one, but you can also do something like the kiss tongue or whatever, and make it look really elongated and curvy and pointy as well. And so I'm just going to go ahead and delete this guy, because let's turn the control points off. Delete. And let's just work with this. So let's say I've got the tongue the way that I want it here, and I want to start creating this piece of it. So it's basically a series of lines, and nothing more than that, than like filleting the edges and utilizing a tangent or tangent radius circle. So let's just go ahead and start creating single lines, and if I have my endpoint snap here, I can go ahead and I think I'm going to use like an 8-inch. Tongue's a little bigger than I thought, so let's try something a little bit bigger. Maybe 15 inches. That looks a little more reasonable. I'm going to hold the shift key and place that line, so basically it's just a starting point to utilize, and we can go ahead and dimensions will be a little bit different on this one. I would stick pretty small. I wouldn't go as big as I did, I think. I would try to model the back of it as like a 6-inch radius instead of what I'm doing. It's a little bit bigger. Makes it a little bit easier. I got a little carried away there with making mine a little bit bigger in this session. But again, we can just start typing in, let's try 10 inches. Whoops. And basically just starting to create this shape here. As you can see, it's just an outline. I always forget if there's an extra space in there or not. What's that?
Is there a side image? Just draw.
No, it only gives us the one image, and then on the website there should be more images of this thing. But I'm just literally eyeballing this, right? It's like, oh yeah, that looks pretty good right there. And I'm going to use the offset tool, and I'm going to guess that since it's a lot larger than I did last time, I'm going to do 1 inch thick, but yeah, that seems proportional to this tongue. But I think I tried to keep it fairly small in respect to, you know, think about the back area being a 6-inch circle, and then everything, like the thickness of this being like 0.25 of an inch. And so the tongue, we could probably shrink this down, but since I'm already going on this one, I'm just going to stick with it here. Line. I'm just going to connect those, and then I'm going to utilize my curve, circular curve, tangent radius, and I'm going to select those two. Of course, I want my radius to be, I don't know, I'm now guessing 1 inch.
31.
I want it to be a little bigger. So, yeah, actually 1 inch would probably work. Yeah. I had to think about that before I responded. And then, you know, this is just a series of trimming. So delete that line and trim that, and then trim between, so that we have a nice circular smooth edge to this as when we go ahead and revolve it. I'm going to do a little trick here and just use the split tool, split and then trim. Let's turn our control points off. Line. Hold the shift key down. Another line. Put my intersection on there. So now we can just go ahead and move this back into here a little bit. And we can start to round these edges. So with the fillet command, I'm going to start with trying a 0.5 radius. That might be a little bit too small. Go with a 1-inch radius. And just round these edges. Put a little rounded edge on that as well. So at this point we want to basically join all this line work together. So maybe I'll move this back out just a little bit so it makes that easier. We don't want to join this line, but we want to join the rest of them. So I'm just going to select those and type in join. So they're all one shape. And now we can go ahead and revolve the, start the revolve axis. It's this axis. And start angle is 0, end angle is 360. And so when we start to look at this, this back in a little bit so that it's connected, and maybe move it up just a little bit, and then you can go ahead and one step further and do a solid Boolean split. And so we want to select surface or polysurface to split, which would be this one, and then select the cutting surface, which would be this one, and now we can just kind of eliminate that, and it gets respectively a clean edge there. So typically we're going to want to create a couple of layers like you see here where we have curves, solids, and construction. And then kind of sub layers for the hood bracket, the legs, things like that, so that you can turn things on and off. I'm going to go ahead and with the quick under the standard, there's kind of a quick hide light bulb. You can go ahead and hide these shapes here. And basically the next step is to create the bracket. So it's kind of hard to see in this image, but there's a little bracket here that wraps around it to hold the hood in place. And so we're going to start making that. And don't want to do it in perspective. Or apparently the left. I want to do it in the front here. And so what I'm going to do is start to just create some. I'm going to snap to midpoint. And now turn midpoint off and go intersection. Oh, come on, or near. There we go. Hold the shift key down to get that straight. So I'm basically just making a construction line here so that I can put a circle here for the actual element or the tube that goes through this object that then the bracket attaches to. So you can go ahead and make a circle, center radius, and I'm going to guess that 1 inch is probably going to be working just fine. And then I can create extruder planar curve using the solid command, and we can click both sides here. And for now, because I can't have my objects turned off, see if I can turn those back on. Yeah, but my command went away, so let's do that again. Solid, extrude planar curve straight, both sides. And I'm just going to bring it out past the actual hood. So you can see in 3D that I'm starting to create a bracket here that attaches, or will attach. Nope, it's this one. Go ahead and hide that. And hide this. And now we just basically need to make the line work for the rectangular bracket. And so essentially I'm just going to use the rectangular corner to corner, and I'm going to utilize did I get that? That's not snapping to that, but oh, don't hit the middle mouse button. It's not quite the way that I want it, so I can scale this 1D. Now I'm going to utilize the offset command again. And the extend tool, or no, explode. this and extend. Did I not get that? Extend to there. Oops, do that one more time. And we can go ahead and utilize the split command and the trim command. I didn't explode that yet. To split that one more time. Actually, I want to do it from the other side. So basically, I'm just creating a bracket, right, for this thing to hold on to. So now that I have this form, I can go ahead and join these shapes together, or these curves together. And again, do a solid extrude planar curve and both sides. And so we want it just a little bit wider, so maybe 1.5. What's that? Sure, 1.25 inches. So that's the bracket, and if we start to unhide what we've got going on here, you can see we've started to create the complete hood of this fairly quickly. I mean, I've just recently had drew this last night, so I kind of intuitively know what's happening. Might take you a little bit longer. Also, I think I skipped, there's a little notch in here that wraps around the entire thing, so before you revolve that, I would put a little notch in there as well. Forgot to do that. But just utilize you know, the line tool and you know, the split and trim to get that in there. It should work fairly easily for you. The next step is to create the bracket itself. So let me just open up the other file to show you what that thing looks like real quick here. Hopefully I think I can open up both at the same time. So basically, this is a circle that I extruded down, and then these are rectangles that I just fillet edged the sides and put a circle in. Cut a circle out with the Boolean split tool. So they're fairly basic objects, and then I joined them all together. I utilized the Boolean split, you know, and divided it. So I made this rectangle larger than what it needed to be. That's the rectangle that that's the rectangle I started with, and I extruded that up, and then used the Boolean split to cut the difference out, and then Boolean unioned the two objects together and used fillet edge tool to round the edges. and then put a hole in the middle of it so that when you go ahead and create a second circle to attach the leg to, it's fairly easy to do that. The legs, I basically went into the top view and created one rectangle and copied it 3 times. So I have 3 legs, and then rotated it into position, and then used the solid extrusion tool to extrude them down. And then once you have all 3 legs extruded down, you can select, I union them together, you can select the one and just move him down. And the only tricky part is to rotate the leg then into place. And so in order to do that, I changed my C-plane in perspective to being on this plane surface here. And then when I used the rotate tool, I picked this as my center point and the bottom of the leg as the radius, and I just kicked it out. And then again, with this little extra piece that connects them together here, I traced the outline of the 3 rectangles and then extruded that down, and then moved it down with the gumball drop tool. Just moved it down and then put them together, or join them together. So just kind of walking through that, and then we'll actually do it here, most of it.
Are we going to go through how to do the chains?
That's on the videos,
Oh.
so you can watch the videos. And Dan walks through that pretty well. He was the original, he invented this course, and he shows you how to do that fairly easily. But he doesn't show you how to do, he shows you how to do the tongue, similar, exact same way I explained how to do it, but doesn't show you how to do the rest of it. So that's what I'm kind of here for, I guess. Okay, so the next step is to draw that cylinder here. And I'm going to go ahead and hide that and the tongue. And more or less just going to utilize the midpoint, and I'm going to hide that as well. I'm going to hide, let's grab it 3D here and hide this for now. Curve, circle, center radius. I'll do it somewhere else here. I want this bottom midpoint. Yeah, I can see that. Thanks, Ryan. What are you mumbling? There we go. And again, this isn't exact science. We don't have a scaled drawing to go after, so I'm just guessing.
I'd recommend looking at all the different images. Two monitors.
Yeah.
It really helps. This thing's complicated.
So create a solid, extrude planar curve straight, and we want to extrude it one-sided, not two-sided, and we're just basically making a platform here. And I'm going to go ahead and create a rectangle, center, corner so I can utilize the shape here. Just place one of these first and extrude that guy. And I think we want to scale him one direction here. Down a little bit. Did I miss it? Looks like I did. So I'm starting out making one of these things, and I'm going to go ahead and put the circle there on it. Hopefully I'm not out in the middle of space here when I draw this circle. Find out. I'm a little bit out in space. Not too concerned about it though, yet. Can always scale this thing, right? So, can utilize our scaling feature here. We'll just shrink him back. Maybe do that one more time. And I suppose, well, this circle's not straight anymore, is it? Let's take a look at that. Yeah, it's not straight anymore. Where is this circle? Oh, it's way over there. Gumdrop tool is pretty cool. Let's try that one more time. And we can go both sides. That probably looks good. So we can either cut this thing out, right, with a difference, right? Select surface or polysurface to subtract from, which is the rectangle, and then the circle, and that gets cut out of that object. So we can see, and then we can create an additional one later on to actually connect the pieces together, the legs. But you don't have to. I suppose you could make one solid shape and then not have to cut the hole out. But if you were to actually create this thing, you'd want the hole there so that the leg can pivot and move. They're not actually connected together. Just one kind of slides through the other one. And then we can also do a Boolean split. So select surface or polysurface to split, which will be this rectangle. Enter and select the cutting surface, the circle. And now we can delete that portion of the rectangle so that it's just this exterior piece. And I think before kind of you go ahead and copy this and rotate it around the object to the three sides, it might be easier just to go ahead and create one whole leg and then union all that together and then copy and paste it and rotate it around, so you only have to do the rotation once. And since this one's straight, more or less, we should be able to make our rectangles a little bit easier here. I'm just going to Control C, Control V that. And I think I'm actually going to use the Move tool. So I can connect those together. Control C, Control V, and move. Select all three of these and create an extrusion. I'm just going to extrude them down proportionally, I guess, here. I'm not super concerned about it. Grab the middle one and just move him down. It looks like we have to move everything up just a little bit, so grab all those. That looks fairly good. And then one more, so I'm going to create one more rectangle corner to corner and select that curve and extrude him as a solid as well. Oh yeah, I forgot to do that. A little bit larger. Or you could just offset it. Probably 1/2 inch. And dimension, solid. Extrude, straight. Maybe make it like that. Now we can move this thing down. So essentially just making the leg first. Let's hide this leg for now so we can see our hole. And let's try a solid cylinder here. Snap to center. Let's get rid of this midpoint. Intersection. And no, I want it here. So let's go intersection. both sides? Yeah. Okay, so now we can union some of these objects so that it makes it a little bit easier to rotate it. Can use the union tool to go ahead and select those. And I don't really want to union all that stuff together yet. What are you mumbling?
You want to put the point in before you. Maybe if you would time.
The what?
The little blade at the bottom of the blade.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about the point.
Make 5 minutes. Keyword.
I got 5 minutes. So whatever we pick up here, I'd recommend trying to get this modeled this weekend if you have time. I know you guys have stuff due next week, but getting this ahead on this will ease your stress a bit. At least I think it does. Maybe not. Hide some of this stuff. Again, I'd separate it on layers. I'm being kind of lazy about that. But, yeah, how do I want to do that? I don't know yet. Create a solid cylinder. And, I don't know. Let's just, see where this thing's at. That's the wrong tool. Yeah, I picked cylinder instead of cone. That's a really skinny cone. Doesn't look like it's actually drawn correctly now that I look at that. Trying to think of the best way to get this thing centered. Probably up top view. Let's try this one more time. I'm off on the side here. Okay. Let's just leave it there for now. I'll go ahead and save this as 4 so I remember. And we'll pick it up on Tuesday morning. We'll hopefully it won't take more than 15 or 20 minutes to complete, and then we'll just open the rest of that time for lab on Tuesday and then Thursday as well.
Anyone need the sign-in sheet?
And I'll get this video posted as soon as I get back to studio. If I can get it
I
to.
thought it was a square to a point. It's been so long since I looked at the lamp, I can't remember. I think we should call it a kiss tone.
Yeah, I would say show
It
for
looks
bonus
exa-
points, but they can make it look like cheats.
It looks like it was run its way to cheats.